Word Balloon, celebrating 16 years of excellence for you.
Chico and the Man will not be presented this evening, and the Rockford Files will be seen 1 hour later than normal, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. Got a little choked up there. John Suntress here. Happy to welcome Michael Jan Friedman back to the show. Good to see you, Mike.
Great to see you as well.
Well, and it's funny because, of course, our opening always has a pantheon of superheroes, and you, with your Kickstarter campaign, are about to introduce a new pantheon of heroes. I'm going to let you say it. Phenomenons?
Phenomenons. And one or two people have said, but isn't it phenomena? And actually, it's phenomenons. Phenomena is the plural of something a little bit different. When we're talking about people who are phenomenal, they are phenomenons. And every human creature, it's called Phenomenons, Every Human Creature, this particular book. And every human creature is it's a quote from Dickens. And I think he's talking about hell. And every human creature recognizes every other human creature. And that's sort of what we're going for. We're in a frame of reference where the superheroes kind of recognize each other as superheroes and interact, and what we're going for is sort of in the early days of Marvel, as primitive as that was in some ways, it was really exciting because you had superheroes recognizing each other, and that created a reality, not just a comic book frame of reference, but a reality. You really felt like it's real because they know each other. I know them; they must know me too. So that's sort of what we're going for, that level of interaction.
Shared universe, absolutely. No, you're right about that. Yeah. And it was always cool to see, Thor flying by in the midst of a Fantastic Four story or whatever. And no, I get it. And in fact, you yourself even point out in your Kickstarter page that, this is obviously not only reminiscent of DC and Marvel having a shared universe, but Wildcards, George R. Martin's wonderful, and Melissa Snodgrass's wonderful collection of stories. I'm a massive fan of that. I've been reading that since the 80s. and really did appreciate that, and have had recent contributors like Paul Cornell, who's written recent short stories for it. And should we share and show your video? Would that help?
Oh, my video, sure. I'll tell you about my video, but please, let's share it.
All right, fair enough, man. I'm gonna I'll bring it up on the screen here. You'll forgive me, everybody. It'll take a second, but there it is. Boom, and let's play the video. Here we go. As Warner Wolf used to say, let's go to the videotape.
Hey, folks, you've seen me lately on a boat full of immigrants in New York Harbor and in a 21st century Aztec cityscape. But this time, I'm exactly where I've always wanted to be, on a rooftop among a bunch of superheroes, doing some kind of cosmic being riff. Superheroes were my first love, which is what drove me to write almost 200 comic book stories for DC, Marvel, and other publishers. But more recently, I've been having fun writing prose stories about superheroes. And if you're having fun, why not invite your friends to join in? Which is why I've asked the most exciting and original writers I know to contribute to my new shared world superhero anthology, Phenomenons, Every Human Creature. Because there's plenty of room on the rooftop for me, for them, and if you're as jazzed about this as we are, for you as well.
That's awesome, man. Very cool.
Yeah. Isn't that slick the way I go? How am I doing this? For you as well, right? What happened there? It's funny. I wanted to do a video. I'm on my own because the guy I usually use for video, I haven't been able to use for the last year. He's my friend, but we can't, because of COVID, we haven't seen each other. Sure. So I'm doing this by myself, and I have the image because my friend Caio Cacaus, a Brazilian artist, has supplied the image, and I put it up. And the problem is, I've disappeared. Parts of my face have disappeared. The wall is protruding. It's like, what's going on? So I had to figure out how to put a bed sheet behind me.
Sure.
And I had to experiment what color shirt would actually come out as a shirt and not nothing. Yeah. So I finally figured out I could wear red. But the thing was, my eyes were still transparent. So I had a line in there about I'm coming across as some random cosmic being. I figured that would do it, but my friends have said, no, what did you do there? Well, that's terrible. But nonetheless, I think it gets the message across. This is a new pantheon of comic book heroes. It's particularly suited to prose. Because it's a shared world, interaction is encouraged, and that translates into different things for different writers. Some of them are just showing cameos, like that Thor flying by in the background sort of thing, except it's one of our guys, of course.
Sure.
And others have actually gotten together in twos and threes to do two-parters, sort of home and away stories. And it's exciting. Originally, to tell you the truth, I thought about doing this on my own, creating a whole pantheon, and that certainly would have been a lot of fun, because I've been doing a lot of superheroes lately, superhero stories in my anthology, in my personal anthologies. But the more I thought about it, the more it really lent itself to a group of writers. And so that's what we settled on, and I'm thrilled that I made that decision. That was a good decision.
Sure.
We've got so many different styles and so many different kinds of writers. It's really exciting to see how each one of them handles their characters. There's no what you might call house style. Every story is very idiosyncratic.
So you didn't hand them any sort of Bible as far as, tell me what you gave them.
I did. I said, here's the world. This is basically a world where everything was the same as in our world up until around 2008. There was a financial crisis, and we never climbed out of it. It only got worse. And so the rich got more powerful, and the poor got less powerful, and it's in this kind of framework that a superhero came about, and he was somebody who could fight injustice at any level, and his name was Grey Guardian. So he was sort of the prototype for superheroes in this world.
Is that this front character here? Is that him?
Yeah, the guy that's biggest in that frame.
Sure.
And he's not flamboyant. He's just a guy. He's very dutiful. He's very determined, and he sets the pace. And then all of a sudden, all kinds of other heroes come out of the woodwork, and I wanted them to be scientifically plausible at some level, So we don't have any Doctor Strange types.
Okay.
We don't have any Thors, although I suppose you could, as the movies do, you could rationalize Thor as a sort of a super alien, right? But we don't have any of that. They're all scientifically plausible. Although I don't feel compelled to give the explanation. All we say is that there is an explanation.
So they aren't origin stories necessarily.
They are not origin stories. In fact, that was one of the things that I was adamant about, was not to have origin stories. Everything everything is in media res, right? So there's no it's not, we don't learn how they got their powers through an origin story. We might get some reference to it in a flashback.
Okay.
Right. So it's a few years after what happened. The Grey Guardian flashed on the scene. He inspired a whole generation of heroes, and then he disappeared, and is thought dead. So is he dead? Is he not dead? We'll find out very soon in that book. It goes from there, and it's cool in that we've got so many different kinds of heroes. Some of them are, on the face of it, are very familiar. We have a super speedster. Paul Kupperberg's doing a super speedster for us.
Great.
Right. And that would seem on the face of it to be familiar, but I'm sure he's got some wrinkles for us that we haven't seen yet. And we've got Jeff Thorne, who's writing Green Lantern, is one of the writers involved in this, but he's got a character, Ron Marz, who any comic book fan would know. Peter David.
I just talked to Ron last night. I wish I'd thought to ask him about his contribution. Peter David, obviously with Paul and Peter David, it sounds like it's your Crazy Eight cohort.
Right.
It's great.
There we are. Yeah, Crazy Eight. Well, we started with Crazy Eight, and then we brought on 7 other writers as well. So it's kind of Crazy Eight and Friends. That's how
cool
anthologies tend to work.
And Keith, and I never get Keith's last name right, but another great Star Trek writer.
Yeah, Keith DeCandido.
DeCandido, thank you, man. Right. I've had him on years ago to talk about his when he was doing the Starfleet Corps of Engineer ebooks and everything.
Right.
So, and again, another my entry point with you was your Star Trek novels back in the day.
Right.
So no, that's great, and I know Keith is a really strong short story writer and everything. So that's really great. Yeah, let's as we talk about the creators, I'll scroll down on the Kickstarter, and you can tell me about the heroes, how much you want to divulge as far as their backgrounds and stuff.
Okay.
So who's this guy?
This guy is the speedster. That's his name is Whoosh. And that's Paul Kupperberg's character, and frankly, I can't wait to see what he's going to do with him, because again, on the face of it, he's he's a traditional kind of superpowered character, but I'm sure Paul's got a few tricks up his sleeve.
Now, are these the only images of these two people, or
well,
as we scroll down?
There are everyone on the cover, but there's only about 7 or 8 characters on the cover. There are others who are represented. So the guy on the left is Rascal. That's Jeff Thorne's character, and that's going to be exciting because it's Jeff Thorne. And on the right is Red Sky. He's being done by Michael Burstein, who's a perennial Nebula and Hugo nominee for his short stories. And everybody's style is different. Jeff kind of has a gritty, driving kind of narrative, and Michael's is kind of very, very gentle and contemplative. So that ought to be, and that's a nice contrast.
And then down here we got who's this guy?
It's actually a woman.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, no. Listen, you're not supposed to know that just looking at her, but that's Black Hat, and that's Aaron Rosenberg's character. And Aaron has already turned in his story. He's very confident that this Kickstarter is going to go well. So he's turned in his story. Black Hat is a character with a bunch of gadgets. I'm not going to tell you too much more because I'm not sure how much Aaron wants to divulge. But
understood. I like the drone in the background, so that's great to see a superhero employing the drone and everything.
Right.
Very cool. Who's this woman?
Her name is JoJo Fang, and her superhero name is Sarcastic Fringehead, which I guarantee you've never seen a character named Sarcastic Fringehead. And she's an Asian American character, and she's written by Mary Fan.
Oh, great!
Who's part of our Crazy 8 group and is a wonderful writer and a wonderful person if you meet her in person. And so that's the character she's invested in. And then this one, she's a giantess. Her name is Colossa, and she has a sister who's tiny. So it's sort of like a giant man and the wasp kind of thing.
Sure.
The sister's name is Particula. So they're Latin American, as is their writer, Dan Hernandez. Dan Hernandez, I don't know if you know him. He's one of the guys who wrote the Pikachu detective movie.
Oh, funny. Terrific. Wow.
And he's a great kind of quirky writer and a great guy. And he participated in one of my other anthologies. And I'm really excited to have him as an ongoing contributor to these as well. So we've got guys from all over.
That's cool. All right. Those are the photos that you have.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. No, I again, I always welcome the concept. And over the years, I've always enjoyed when, comic veterans have created anthologies like this. And I remember, I don't remember the title of the anthology, but I know Denny O'Neil did like a bicycle kind of.
Bicycle Hero.
Yeah. And I'm like, hell, if it's Denny O'Neil, he's got my attention. So.
Yeah.
And again, your guys,
Kupperberg contributed to that as well.
There you go, man. Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me. And no, whenever Paul has something new, whenever Peter has something new, whenever you have something new, I'm happy to talk and go into detail with you guys and find out about these great stories. Because again, you're very prolific. You guys know what you're doing when it comes to this kind of stuff. I mean, God, how many? Have you ever counted how many superhero comics you've written?
Well, I did a lot of Star Trek comics. If you include all of that, I think it's like 190 or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah. What's interesting, particularly interesting to me, because as in addition to being a writer, there's a part of me that's a reader, and the part of me that's a reader is so jazzed about this book, because I remember when I was young, there were a couple of um, prose novels about one was called The Avengers Battle of the Earthwrecker, and another one was Captain America in the Great Gold Seal, I think it was. And these are really exciting because I was used to seeing them in a comic book format, and that was that's exciting all by itself. But,
Sure.
But to see them in a prose format, I thought was really special. There was a certain energy there, that kind of unexpected energy, and so that's what we're going for. We hope to have somebody who's never read a superhero story in prose before look at this and go, oh wow, this is a whole new way to enjoy superheroes.
I can appreciate that, and over the years, I've talked to, like, Mark Waid contributed to that Further Adventures of Superman prose collection, and it's one of my favorite Superman stories he ever wrote. It's called Forget Me Not, and a magic woman kind of makes Lois forget who Superman is, and he almost does that to make her life easier and not have to deal with the fact that he always has to leave her. And it's this really heartfelt story of, like, he does lose her and she does find another guy, and as the story's going on, he's starting to forget about their relationship and has that choice of, God, do I be selfish and get her back, or do I let her live her life? And it's a terrific story. And also that Batman collection that was made back in the 80s as well. Yeah. And one of my favorite stories, Mike Resnick wrote this great story called Neutral Ground. And it was all about the tailor that would not only repair the costumes, but, the first scene is Bruce Wayne getting his utility belt. And he's like, all right, this is what I did to help you out. I fixed this, and I gave you a different rope to use with your grappling hook, and it's going to be easier on your gloves. And I've reinforced your gloves. If you have this different rope, you're not going to have them wear out. The Riddler shows up. And it's great because, as the title suggests, no fights. No, I don't want to know what you're going to do with this stuff. And it's great. It's just like you can imagine. And that's the thing about prose. Rather than have the pictures tell the story for you, you can imagine this little shop on some New York street, or obviously Gotham Street or whatever, existing. And this guy just very quietly doing this stuff for both heroes and villains. It was a great idea.
That is a great idea. It's original. I love to shine a light on little corners, little dark corners of a universe, and that story does that. That's great.
Yeah. So no, and again, like I said, I've been a Wild Cards reader for years. I certainly remember the graphic novel adaptation they did, but also, God, I know Melissa and Martin are in the midst of developing it for TV. I can't wait.
Yeah. I spoke to Melissa because I needed a contract. I needed to see how they structured their contract.
Sure.
She was kind enough to help in that regard.
That's great to hear, man.
We kind of see Wild Cards. Wild Cards is a little different because in that milieu, everyone got their powers from a particular source, from the same source.
Yeah.
In our universe, everyone gets their powers or resources from a different source. I kind of like that. I like them to be different, and I feel that where they got their abilities or their resources is very important in terms of distinguishing them. So it's a little different philosophy, but we're certainly we're not Wild Cards. We're certainly inspired by Wild Cards.
Sure.
So we're hoping if we can come close to that lofty standard, we'll be very happy.
I don't blame you, man. Absolutely. And again, they're all inspired by this first hero,
Yeah,
which is cool too. And I appreciate that. It has that kind of Superman vibe of, or even the backstory on Watchmen, how the original Night Owl kind of inspires a bunch of the original Minutemen to become heroes and everything.
right. Yeah,
That's,
I mean, we don't have one of the other things that sets us apart is at this point we don't have a golden age of heroes, right? So he's the first one, and he shows up in this age. So there's no golden age, and that might change, I suppose, down the line. But I very much want this to be an annual event, and to we may churn through a couple of writers, but basically, everybody who's in on it now will probably remain in on it, at least in the majority of our books, and it's really it's exciting for me because I don't know exactly where it's going. I kind of have a little bit of a plot for this book. I didn't want to get in the way of great stories. There's a little bit of a framework, but I don't know what the framework for book 2 is going to be yet. I have to see what we come up with and who's got the most exciting hook, and that'll be what we base book 2 on.
okay, and I was going to ask if there is an eventual crisis that calls them all together as one group.
Maybe. I mean, not yet. I mean, certainly not in this book. In this book, they're separate. They interact to different extents and in different ways, but there's no crisis, and we haven't yet planned one. One of the things that I find is writers all have their own kind of takes on their heroes, and a guy we both know, Brian Augustine, was my editor on Dark Stars, and I remember distinctly, he said, I said, so, do you need to see this? Do you need to see that? He goes, nope. He goes, if you pick the right horses, you can just let them run. And I feel like I picked the right horses, and it would be a disservice to them and to our readers if I got in the way too much. I want to see these horses run.
Fair enough. Obviously the best heroes, the reason why they're great is they have a great counterweight in the villains that they have to face.
Right.
And I don't know how much you want to talk about the villains that we're going to see in the book as well.
Honestly, that's going to be up to the
individual
writers. Yeah, they're coming up with the villains. In some cases, they may almost be villains. Sort of anti-heroes. We'll see how that goes.
Okay.
The premise that the world was kind of hamstrung by a financial crisis, it creates sort of a wealthy criminal class, but they're not out to take over the world. They're not out to rob a bank. They're just out, just like a lot of wealthy people today. They're just out to be even wealthier and more powerful, so they can continue to be wealthy.
Right? Yeah, maintain their status quo, and yeah, again, that period of 2008 is fresh in a lot of our minds, and that's where the idea of the 99% versus the 1% kind of occurred. And obviously, you guys are taking it to the next level,
right?
In that things never recovered. Hey, man, as you know, as we know as adults and everything, and how the world works, even now, it really is kind of this cup and balls kind of bullshit in terms of a lot of just mutual agreement globally, and really coming out of the pandemic, the amount of money that was lost and everything, and really just the world kind of saying, okay, we're going to readjust and do what we can and bail people out where we can. And, again, there are still winners and losers. And a lot of it is this kind of shared theoretical currency that we're all kind of living on that really isn't, again, is the money really worth the paper it's printed on? I mean, that's a real question. I don't know if that's something that you delve into in these stories as well, or plan to.
I would like to, but in a real sense, I'm only one writer.
Sure.
In on this bus, so I plan to make that, to talk about that, because it's one of the things that's important to me. But and to a lot of the writers that we have, I know it's also important. One of the things that I wanted to do is not just get great writers, but I wanted to get great people, and because why not? Why not get great people that you're enthused about working with and like to see and like to talk to, because you can. So I wanted people to check both boxes, and I got them. And I got them. I did. There were a few people who turned me down for one reason or another, but I wouldn't be surprised if they show up in volume 2 or volume 3 or something like that. Yeah. It's interesting to see. I mean, I in a way, I feel like I'm giving back. I mean, this project benefits writers. It benefits artists, because we have artists doing interior art and as stretch goals, and also exterior art, of course, to cover. But I feel like it also will be fun and exciting and gratifying for our readers. So I've been very fortunate to have a long and productive career, and I feel like these anthologies are my one way in which I want to give back.
That's awesome, man. Here, I'm going to put the Kickstarter page back up, because I want to talk about some of the goals, or some of the pledges and the platforms you have. For instance, at 40. Well, first of all, here let's start off at the very beginning. If you just want an ebook, $8. $25 for a trade copy, and then I guess you'll get an acknowledgement if you're at 40 at the back of a book, a thank you that you were one of the patrons of the book. But this is fun. It starts at $48. You can get a mention in the book, and as you say, if you want someone to be either a character or a street named after somebody, some of those kind of pledges. So, and then even more so at $100, you actually become a real character, I guess.
Yeah, I wanted to have that intermediate goal, because not everybody, has the resources to go in for $100,
Sure.
and maybe they just want to, give their friend, their wife, their cousin, their dad, a little jolt. Like, wow, I'm in a book, and not only am I in a book, but I'm in a story by one of my favorite writers. How cool is it? That writer, that guy whose work I love, that woman whose work I love, put me in her story. That's there forever. So it's very exciting. And if you want to go for the full enchilada, the Tuckerization,
Yeah.
you can be Tuckerized. You can become a full-fledged character in a story by that person. And I asked each writer, how many do you want to do? One, you want to do two? I don't know, what your story is going to be like yet.
Sure.
And like Jeff Thorne said, oh, definitely two. That's a hoot. I love doing that. So he wound up. I think his are both. One of them is taken. One of them is not.
Right.
It's a little mind-boggling to me that there are any of these left. Because
Sure.
it's such a cool thing. I mean, to the kind of thing where you can put a loved one in a story, even unbeknownst to them, they become a character in the story. That's something. Obviously, that's something you can't do with when you buy them a book in the bookstore, which I would encourage you to buy lots of books in the bookstore, but that's something you can't do that we can offer through a crowdfunding platform.
I understand, man, and honestly, that's been an incredible compliment to me over the years. Brian Bendis made me a character in Ultimate Spider-Man, and Francis Manapul drew me in a Flash issue. That's happened a lot. Good friends like Jeremy Hahn and others have put me in books, and it's like, oh God, that's ridiculous. And really, in the case of Bendis in Ultimate Spider-Man, I was Peter Parker's principal at his high school, and it was great. And I even it was funny. There was a scene where the principal is well, there's two great scenes. One, Aunt May comes in, and in current continuity, and especially in the Ultimate Universe, Aunt May knew that Spider-Man was Peter, and she sits down with the principal, and there's supervillains attacking the high school, and it's this great scene of me. I mean, it definitely looks like me, and I'm telling Aunt May, I don't know if your nephew is Spider-Man or not, and frankly, I don't care. My job is to keep the high school safe, and all this weird shit's happening. Do something about it. And then finally, because of all the attacks, he's forced out of office and addresses the PTA in his final scene. And it's, look, you think it was my responsibility. It's all of your responsibilities for your parents and really, or your kids. And really, he's talking directly to Aunt May and, whatever. And it was hilarious. Another podcast is like, your scene went on for like 5 pages. I'm like, I don't know what happened. I love it. And yeah, it was, really, it was just the nicest compliment. So yeah, I think that's terrific. And you're right about that. And God, especially if the person is a Peter David fan, a Paul Kupperberg fan, the like, or a Thorne fan, here's a great chance to really give them a hell of a present. And I think, again, at a very fair price. And then as I was looking at, then at $175, you get your face in the book.
Right. At that level, an artist. We've recently, for the last book I did, we recently used Mike Collins, who is my collaborator on the Dark Star series, and a great guy and a great artist, and very dedicated, to doing a good job. He did a couple of great likenesses for backers, and that's what we're going for here. It's one thing to become a character in the book. Some people prefer just to have their face, and again, that it's a scene in the book, and you are one of the characters in that scene. And occasionally people do both. We can arrange that as well, where they get Tuckerized in the story, and then their face gets put on their character. So it's very exciting, and God knows if I were considering becoming a backer, I think it would be for a Tuckerization or the opportunity to get my face in.
And then also you've got great add-ons. Again, if you're a fan of some of these writers, you can get a collection of ebooks that they've written themselves, including yourself, obviously. And right. I must ask you, I'm looking at the copy here. So for only $6 or more, you can snag an autographed copy of Batman and Robin, the novelization of, is that the Clooney movie?
It's the Clooney movie.
Yeah.
It is. And I can tell you without batting an eyelash that the book is better than the movie.
Well, honestly, and I first of all, Michael, I have no doubt about that, based on not only your own writing, but the fact that a lot of times the novelizations, because they are commissioned so early in the process, that the story can become very different, and you get other scenes. And I know from experience buying novelizations how much I've enjoyed them, sometimes a lot more than the movie. I will confess, and I'm kind of proud, that I saw the mess that Batman and Robin was, and that's putting it kindly.
Yeah.
I still have not seen the entire film. And I love that Clooney takes the blame for it. But in reality, and also, hey, man,
it's Schumacher.
Well, but also like I even cut Schumacher some slack because I heard him in interviews before he passed say almost every other day the marketing department would come in with a toy and say we need a scene with this, because we need to sell the toys as much as make the movie. And what are you supposed to do with shit like that? I mean, my God, I mean, so honestly, I might opt for the extra $6 to get the Batman and Robin book from you, because I would like to read it. And I think I have a feeling in your hands you probably handled the amount of villains that are in it. My God, it started with Batman Returns, the second Keaton movie, where it's like, oh, it's not just Catwoman, it's Penguin too, and it's Christopher Walken's character, and it's like too many villains. Yeah, right. One hero, one villain. Keep it simple, everybody.
They figured one of them was bound to work, right?
Yes, but yeah, man. I mean, you got Bane, you got Poison Ivy, of course, you have Mr. Freeze, and you have Arnold. And boy, goddamn, hell, as you know, the '66 Batman show had better dialogue than the shit we got in the few scenes I've seen in Batman and Robin. It's like, come on, Jesus Christ. Oh, and it almost, it did kind of kill superhero movies for a little while. I mean, I know Blade came the year afterwards, but a much different and a different tone of a movie.
Yeah.
And as you know, too, because seriously, shitty movies, a lot of times, fans overreact and like, oh, that's going to kill superhero movies. It's like, no. The worst movie, at worst, might cause 2 or 3 years of, all right, let's rethink this thing and approach it in a different way. Because these characters, as you know, no pun intended, they're bulletproof. They really are bulletproof. Mm-hmm. And one shit story is not going to ruin these guys.
Right. So, you get a little trend where somebody goes, oh my God, that movie didn't do well, and overlooking the reasons it didn't do well and just saying, well, it's a superhero movie, it didn't do well, maybe people don't want to see superheroes anymore. And then, as you say, a couple of years later, all of a sudden everybody wants to see superheroes. It's weird. I'll tell you, it's weird though that there are superhero movies and so many people go to them. We used to be like a pretty exclusive little outpost in civilization.
Yep.
Where there was just a few of us, comic characters, and nobody knew who they were, and we were ostracized. And now, if you don't know who Hawkeye is, what kind of person are you? You're not cool.
I don't know how much you, aside from your writing, were ever in the corporate world in the last, couple decades and stuff. But yeah, you're right about that. I working at my radio station, especially when the CW shows, and also when Gotham was happening, really only like 5 years ago or so. And some of the secretaries would pull me aside to be like, okay, explain Reverse Flash to me. And I'm like, on the street, I'd be happy to explain Reverse Flash to you.
Reverse Flash.
And the owner, who's a bit older, would literally give like the biggest sneer of like, can you get back to work? And I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And it's like, hey, bad news, dick. This is the new wave of what everybody's exciting about. And you're right, because, there was that year, 2013, when the Wolverine movie came out and the, what's his name? I can't remember the character now. The kid saves the world. It was Michael Cena who played him. The Canadian creator made him and stuff. God damn it. The audience probably knows who I'm talking about. Maybe. Yeah.
Scott, a superhero?
No, it was Scott Pilgrim. Scott
Pilgrim, right.
Yeah, all these, and so the Wolverine movie and Scott Pilgrim came out, and a couple others. Oh, let me see if because I'll certainly give somebody a credit. Of course, Wayne, thank you very much. Right there with the answer. Thank you, Wayne. It was 2013, and there was this brief moment of, hey, maybe the superheroes have reached their oversaturation point, and maybe it's going to pull back. Well, look where we are 8 years later. No, Not at all. And in fact, God, I don't know if you saw Barry Diller was quoted from an NPR interview and talking about how outside of the franchise movies like the Marvel Universe and the DC Universe and horror movies, he's like, the film industry is, he said, dead. And he meant by the movie theater standpoint of, that, like, those are the movies that people are still willing to go see in the theaters as we speak. Black Widow opening up today.
Right.
I mean, so yeah, and I really do think, and I bet you agree, but I do want to hear your comment. I think we're beyond that. Like, no one bad superhero film is going to kill the franchise. I really think like the Western, the superhero genre is now here to stay.
I think so. I think so too. Because superheroes kind of, they're kind of like can openers. They're opening new possibilities for us, new science fictional ways of looking at the world. And westerns were great and still are, some of them, but it didn't expand our consciousness. And superheroes are just our way of doing that. And listen, there've been some bad superhero movies, and they haven't killed anything. So if it's already, we're past that point.
And it's a vessel that you can put other genres in. And I think especially the Marvel movies have shown that. Ant-Man is a heist series, and Thor is Norse mythology, and Captain America, God, especially when you looked at Winter Soldier and even Falcon and Winter Soldiers, a lot of espionage in there as well. And I think that
was a war movie, the first one.
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the thing you can really do, and then certainly even Stan, before he passed away, I talking to Rob Liefeld about the Deadpool movie. Apparently Stan just grabbed it and said, "This is a game changer." And it's like, yeah, it is. It's a dark comedy.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that's the thing. So no, the potential's there. Do the writers, and again, I don't know how much they reveal to you in terms of what they're doing before, at this point. But yeah, are they taking advantage of that as well in your short stories and telling that kind of different tropes within the idea of a superhero story?
I'm going to bet they will.
Okay.
Because they do that a lot. Certain writers do certain things a lot, and I'm sure that'll happen. I'm not sure I can point to an example right now, but Ron Marz's character is reminiscent of all those jungle lords that we've seen over the years. So the jungle adventure.
Cool.
Although it may not take place in a jungle, but there's certainly that. I wouldn't be shocked if some of them sounded a little like a 1950s science fiction monster movie, but and there'll definitely be detective stories. It'll definitely, these writers love doing detective stories. In fact, I'll tell them, don't all of you do detective stories. But I'm not thinking if there. I don't know. Some of these stories will be at a sort of a mundane level, superheroic things happening at the level of a mom sending her kids off to school, and others will be cosmic. Although they'll all take place here on Earth.
Okay.
Cosmic in scope. I'm trying to think. There's one of the stories by Ilsa J. Bick, who's a wonderful writer, and she kind of does suspense and horror. Is all the protagonists are animals.
Oh, fun!
Right, so that'll be different. It's kind of an animal adventure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right, I'm going to make you talk a little Star Trek with me, Mike. I have to.
Sure. Okay.
All right, excellent. How many novels did you Star Trek novels have you written?
About 35 books.
Yeah.
Probably close to 30 novels.
Are you still pitching new novels, or even? I mean, I know you did the Voyager episode. Do you still pitch to the shows as well?
No, I haven't. Which is not to say that I won't. I haven't.
Okay.
Not, to my knowledge, at least, they're not like the shows that we're on. In that those shows were actually open to anyone who wanted to pitch. I once went to a party in LA, given by a couple of writer friends who had pitched to the show, and and there were other writers there who had pitched to the show, and my writing partner and I were there in LA to pitch to the show. So they ordered a bunch of pizzas, and this is back in the day before I'd ever had pineapple on pizza or anything like that. The pizzas arrive. The kid who delivers the pizzas, it turns out, pitched to the show. Everybody pitched to the show.
Sure.
So that doesn't exist. They're staff written. That doesn't exist.
Right.
To my knowledge. So they're not open to that. And I'm not in a position, I live in New York. I'm not in a position to, apply for a staff.
I'm hip. No, I get that. From the novel side, are you still pitching ideas there?
I'm not. Okay. I mean, I'm not entirely close to the idea. It's just, I feel like I've done a lot of that, and maybe like an anthology or something like that would come along, and I'd want to contribute. But on one hand, I feel like I've exercised the heck out of that muscle.
Sure.
And I love Star Trek. I watch Star Trek. I read Star Trek, but I'm not sure how much I want to write Star Trek. And the other thing is, there's somebody out there whose dream is to write a Star Trek book. And that was my dream, and I'd much rather see their dream fulfilled than have me write another Star Trek book. It's going to mean a lot more to them. So that's just kind of fair.
I get it. No, and again, like you said, Jesus, 35 novels and all the comics that you wrote. You've explored the universe pretty heavily.
Yeah.
Were there stories that you pitched to the TV shows that didn't get made, and I don't know how much you'd be willing to share any story ideas that you had that they turned down or whatever?
It's funny because, or I don't know, maybe it's not funny. A lot of those ideas you already know because you've seen them come out in the form of episodes. Because my Kevin Ryan, my pitching partner, and I would go and say, "Well, how about this?" And they would say, "Oh yeah, it's in development already."
Sure.
This, oh, well, we're breaking that story right now in the writers' room. How about this? Well, we can't do that because that directly contradicts something else we're doing, which we can't tell you about yet.
Understood.
You've actually seen a lot of these. And some of them wound up, in fact, a lot of them wound up in the books I was writing.
Sure.
Their plots or subplots. So they're out there. I'm trying to think if there's something that I pitched that didn't show up somewhere else. And I'll tell you what, I don't think so. I think they all showed up one way or the other. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I wondered if there were any lost Christopher Pike stories that you would consider, things like that. I mean, honestly, you and I talked the last time, and certainly my audience is well aware of my lack of enthusiasm about the current Star Trek product we're getting. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping Strange New Worlds breaks my frustration. And I know Anson Mount just put out a great tweet talking about how they wrapped up production and he's like, the old fans are going to be really happy with Strange New Worlds, and he was, to me, the best thing about the second season of Discovery. And yeah, I mean, I've from watching The Cage and the 2-part Menagerie, I've always been fascinated with that thought of, oh my God, what was the crew like 10 years before? And love the Marvel run of the Pike stories they did during the 90s. Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big fan, and I really like even not only Anson Mount, but I really like Rebecca Romaine as number one. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Again, not crazy about what they're doing with Spock as far as this period of his life. Again, there's always room for improvement, and shows need to find themselves. I mean, God,
Right.
yeah. So I mean, again, I'm always hopeful, and the second season of Lower Decks starts in a few weeks,
Right.
and it's like, well, maybe I'll like this week's episode and a little bit better. And again, I remember being frustrated during that first season of Next Generation, where they were kind of stubbing their toe every other episode.
I mean, it took them, in a lot of cases, it took them a year and a half to just find their rhythm. And some of these shows have only been around a year and a half. So, It's true that we have to give them some leeway. I'll tell you, Anson Mount, great guy. I met him at a convention.
That's awesome.
Just before the pandemic, and a great guy. Knows his Star Trek and really has the right attitude. I mean, I have to say, you don't always see the right attitude. Enterprise. I remember the guy who sang the song,
Russell something. Yeah.
right. He was interviewed, and they said, so this one has lyrics. Some of the fans aren't so happy with the fact that it's got lyrics. And he goes, well, going to be on for 7 years. They better get used to it. So, first of all, it wasn't on for 7 years, was it?
It's true. 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And, there was a little arrogance there. But I don't see that certainly in Anson and the other folks that I've met from that show really have their heads on straight.
That's cool. Did you do any online Star Trek convention events during the COVID year?
Yeah, here and there. In fact, tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday is virtual shore leave.
Ha!
Shore leave is a convention I do every year.
Sure.
In mid-July, right? And tomorrow and Sunday we're doing a whole bunch of panels virtually. So I encourage people to sign up and see our panels. One of them is a Crazy 8 panel.
Oh, that's great, man.
What we're doing, what each of us is doing for Crazy 8, and of course, we can get everybody in, even though we're in our various locations. Paul's in Connecticut, and Jeff's in California, and New Jersey, and Long Island. I'm on Long Island, and Bob's in Maryland, and so we can actually get together without any problem.
That's awesome. Is it a free convention, or do you have to register and pay? Or
virtually, it's free. I think you have to register.
Okay.
But you can go to the website, Shore Leave Convention, and you can go to the website and check it out. It's free. It's just I think you have to register at some level. Next year they'll be going back to the in-person version of the convention.
Of course.
But I'll tell you, it's weird. It's weird that I haven't been to a convention in more than like a year and a half.
Sure.
Something like that. It's
sure
crazy.
No, I hear, dude. C2E2 in Chicago was the last comic convention before everything shut down. That's my backyard, and yeah, no, I'm going to my first. I'm going. Forgive the plug, but it does give me the opportunity to remind people I will be in Connecticut for Terrificon and they're.
Oh, you will. Okay, I'm going to try and get there.
Oh, that's great, Mike. God, I hope I see it because I know Paul will be there certainly.
Yeah. I'm going to try and make it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So,
Paul, here and another further plug, as we mentioned, Paul. Paul and I are doing this great presentation of Julie Schwartz's 1988 slide presentation. Then was the 50th anniversary of Superman, and thank God, Paul found the VHS tape in Julie's wastepaper basket and hung on to it. As you know, I'm sure better than I do, man. Thank God Paul hangs on to everything.
Yeah, he does.
It's good. That's great. That's wonderful because he, and just, like you, he's pitched novels and other stories that didn't make it to, press back in the day. And now he's able to represent them and stuff. I'm all for it because, again, much like you, the guy knows his business. I'm really glad that he's involved in, phenomenons as well. Yeah.
Paul's a great comic industry historian, as is Bob Greenberger.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Crazy Eight colleagues. And Bob, of course, is doing Bob's doing a kind of a what would you call it for phenomenons, every human creature. He's doing a sort of a shield, sort of like
fun.
Shield in our universe.
Sure, they're a spy organization. Absolutely, man. That's fantastic.
I'm excited about that.
Understood. Yeah. Well, I've put in the chat the Kickstarter URL where everyone can find Phenomenon's Every Human Creature, and absolutely, help you guys out and back this thing because it's a great idea. It's in great hands. You guys are market proven. I think when it comes to doing great short stories and great genre fiction and stuff. So up and down, men and women. So that's terrific. I'm really glad you're doing it. And that's why, Jesus, man, when I saw that, you starting to promote this Kickstarter, I'm like, well, shit, we got to talk, man. I know we just talked about your Aztec book and everything, but no, this is great.
Right.
No.
Yeah. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate it on behalf of everybody involved in it. I think, anything that puts together writers and readers, it does my heart good. So, and you're aiding and abetting that. So I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, man. Absolutely. No, really excited to see this and happy to help back the Kickstarter, not only, myself, but also to promote it for the Word Balloon audience and everything. So yeah, everybody, you got to check out Phenomenon's Every Human Creature. Again, putting it on the screen for our viewers, the URL, and for the audio listeners and stuff, we'll have a link as well in the description of the show. But yeah, man, I'm always happy to talk to you, and I appreciate you tolerating my Star Trek questions.
Not at all. That was, I'm happy to do that.
And again, everyone, I guess we got to check out Shore Leave Convention online this weekend and see more great Trek conversations with Mike and the rest. So that sounds great, man. Well, thank you, dude. As always, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure, man. That'll probably do it this week for Word Balloon Live. I think I'm taking the weekend off and not talking to anybody until next week. And we'll have another lineup of great comic book and other authors and other Terrificon guests talking here on Word Balloon Live. But as always, I appreciate your attention.